My faith journey really began as a young teenager in Brighton, New York. My family was attending a very small Lutheran church there that was extremely conservative. We had a Norwegian pastor and a very small congregation, probably about 50 members. The odd thing about it as a teenager was that the very few teens that were there had to go to confirmation for 3 years every Saturday morning starting at 8 a.m. in the morning. So you can imagine how popular that idea was. But we would get up and come to church, and the Norwegian pastor there kind of was very heavy on making sure that we memorized Luther's small catechism and readings from the Bible and dug deep into the theology of the Lutheran Church and how it was different from all the other denominations out there. And I did get a good overview of what it meant to be a Lutheran and what it meant to be a Christian. But at that stage in my life, I probably didn't really appreciate what I was learning as much. It just seemed like more of a pain than anything else to get up and do that. Confirmation at that point meant standing up in front of that small congregation and reciting questions and answers, which was very difficult because you didn't know exactly what you were going to be asked, but you had to be prepared to give the appropriate answer. So it was extremely intimidating as a young 13-year-old to go through that kind of a process. But I did go on, and for me at that stage in my life, God was an authoritative figure, as was the church. So I had a faith because God told me to have a faith, and my parents told me to have a faith, but not so much because I believed it on my own. I did grow up, though, and got married at 19 and continued going to church, had children, and we all just kind of went along at our church. Faith just kind of was a normal thing. I did teach my girls Bible stories and went to Sunday school and all of that. Unfortunately, though, after about 10 years, the marriage started to unravel, and we went through a divorce, sadly. And at that point, my faith took a big hit because at that stage in my life, because I was a newly divorced person, a lot of my friends stopped talking to me, which was really painful. People take sides in these kind of situations. And even some of the friends I had at church kind of stopped talking to me. So I started to question whether I really had a place in church anymore. And I stopped going for a couple of years. However, I did remarry, and during that process, I noticed that one of the local churches had a blended family support group, and I was interested in that. It seemed like it would be a good way to help blend my children's lives with my new husband, and so we started attending that and really, really enjoyed it, so much so that we ended up joining that church, which was a Methodist church, and getting back into having church and faith as part of our life. And so again, the faith story just sort of plateaued. We went on and raised our children, and I never really felt a real close personal involvement with God, but was trying to do all the right things for myself and for the kids. It really wasn't until my daughter became very ill that things kind of changed for me. As a mother knows, when your child becomes very ill and you can't do anything about it, it's extremely frustrating, and that's what happened to me. I tried all kinds of things to help her, but I wasn't able to do that on my own. And at one point I was despairing greatly, and I really called out to God to help the situation, and I tried to give up some of that control. And at that point he really did. It was a very short time after I despaired to God that he came through for us. He helped us find the right doctors to help her illness, as well as the right medications and in no time at all she was doing 100% better, and we were so extremely thankful. It was at that point I really started to see that there was a personal connection to God for me. And however, over time, you realize that God is not Santa Claus, and it's important really to learn that. And I had to learn that as well. I had to learn that not every time that I went to God and asked for things would I get them. And that was a longer, harder process, but it is something that I think gradually over time I've come to realize. We did eventually move to New York, and at some point started coming to Messiah, and have really grown our faith here. What we've learned by joining the small groups here is that a lot of people have the same kind of struggles that we have. And in the small groups, it's been amazing to share those kind of struggles and find out how other people handle them. It's amazing what you can learn if you're just willing to share and open up your ears to hear how other people are handling things with Christ's help. And for me, that's made all the difference. We've learned that it's really a faith journey, and that it's not about a destination with your faith. It's really about the journey itself. So some days there are big obstacles in the road, and it seems like you just can't get through them. And on other days, you have a much smoother sailing experience. But the one thing I do know is that while I'm on the journey, I'm not alone. And that if you don't open up your heart to God and the believers around you supporting you, that you will truly be alone.